Imagine an era where the quality of your music wasn't measured by the size of a digital file, but by the mechanical precision of spinning magnetic tape. In the 1970s and 80s, if you were a serious audiophile, one name sat on the absolute throne: Akai. Akai wasn't just a brand, they were an absolute giant. Their engineering was so globally respected that at the height of the Cold War in 1980, they were chosen as the official video equipment supplier for the Moscow Olympics. Their legendary glass and crystal head technology was heavily marketed as Indestructible, a piece of tech that would outlive its owner. They defeated the limits of time. But if their technology was so immortal, why did the brand suddenly vanish from the face of the earth? Where did this red giant go? How did a company that once stood shoulder to shoulder with Sony, Panasonic, and Pioneer become nothing more than a cheap sticker slapped on discount electronics at your local Walmart? Today, we are uncovering the golden era, the legendary machines that changed American music, and the dark internal tragedy that murdered this Tokyo audio giant. This is the tragic history of Akai. Our story begins long before the era of cassettes and CDs, specifically July 15, 1929 in Tokyo, Japan, with the founding of the Akai Electric Company. It was built by Masukichi Akai and his brilliant son, Saburo Akai. In the beginning, Masukichi wasn't making musical instruments or audio players. The company was born manufacturing light electrical components, small electric motors and switches. But under the direction of Saburo Akai, who was obsessed with sound engineering and innovation, the company's focus began to shift. After World War II, as Japan's industry began to rise from the ashes, Saburo saw massive potential in magnetic tape recording technology. In the early 1950s, Akai launched their first ever tape recorder. This single move changed the family's destiny forever. They were no longer just motor builders, they were laying the foundation for the future of the global audio industry. Entering the 1960s and 70s, Akai launched a global invasion. The biggest problem with tape recorders at the time was the head, the part that reads the magnetic tape. They wore out quickly due to constant friction. This is where Akai made a breakthrough that shook their competitors to the core. They introduced the GX head, or glass and crystal ferrite head. Coated in a specialized ultra-hard glass material, Akai boldly claimed their GX heads could last for 150,000 hours without a single drop in audio quality. This innovation made Akai virtually untouchable in terms of durability. At their peak, everyone from professional recording studios in Los Angeles to radio stations across Europe relied on Akai's reel-to-reel machines. But their global triumph wasn't just in audio. By the late 70s, Akai expanded massively into video tape recorders. Their visual quality and mechanical durability were so phenomenal that the International Olympic Committee chose Akai as the official video supplier for the 1980 Moscow Olympics. This was the moment the Akai logo stood among the biggest titans on Earth. This global dominance heavily infiltrated the American market. Throughout the late 70s and 80s, having an Akai gear in your hi-fi rack was the ultimate flex. First, there was the Akai GX 747 reel-to-reel tape deck. This was the holy grail for audiophiles, a 50-pound beast made of solid metal featuring 6 GX heads, a seamless auto-reverse system, and whisper-quiet motors. Buying one back then cost as much as a used car. Then came the stereo amplifiers, AM 2600 series. Nothing beat the brushed aluminum aesthetic of a classic Akai amp. The heavy, solid volume knobs provided an incredible tactile satisfaction that modern digital buttons just can't replicate. When breakdancing and street music exploded in the US, Akai hit the streets with their massive boomboxes like the AJ500, featuring a 4-band radio, dual cassettes, and biphonic technology that created a 3D sound illusion. But their absolute crowning achievement happened in the late 1980s when they moved from the living room into the studio. Partnering with legendary American designer Roger Lynn, they created the Akai MPC-60 MIDI Production Center. This single machine revolutionized the music industry. It was the drum machine and sampler that literally birthed modern American hip-hop and electronic music. Dr. Dre, Jay Dilla, DJ Premier, they all built their empires on Akai MPCs. However, Akai wasn't fighting this war alone. In the cassette deck market, they were ambushed by Nakamichi's legendary Dragon series. In the reel-to-reel space, they had to elbow TIAC and Pioneer. Meanwhile, Sony and Panasonic were crushing the market with aggressive mass production. This is exactly where the real tragedy begins. While Pioneer was heavily innovating with Laserdisc and Sony skyrocketed with the Walkman and the digital CD format, Akai got too comfortable being the king of magnetic tape. This fatal delay in adapting to the digital age paved the way for a much darker disaster. This is the darkest chapter of Akai's history. This isn't just a story about cassette tapes being replaced by CDs. This is a story of corporate murder. Entering the 1990s, analog audio sales plummeted. Akai started running out of cash. At this vulnerable point, the company was acquired by the Semitech Group, led by a Hong Kong-based billionaire named James Ting. James Ting absorbed Akai into his massive conglomerate called Grande Holdings. At first, it looked like a rescue mission, but his true intentions were entirely different. Grande Holdings didn't use Akai's massive reputation to innovate, they used it as a tool for accounting manipulation. Internal conflicts exploded. The loyal, veteran Japanese engineers felt deeply betrayed. Research and development budgets were slashed to zero. The prestigious Akai badge was forcefully slapped onto cheap, low-quality electronics made by third-party factories, cheap tube TVs, washing machines, and garbage DVD players. Akai's legendary quality standard was destroyed from inside out. The climax hit at the turn of the millennium. In late 1990 and early 2000, the mask fell off. James Ting and his company were exposed for committing massive accounting fraud worth billions of dollars. Akai's cash reserves had been completely drained to cover the massive debts of other failing companies within Grande Holdings. In the year 2000, the legendary Akai Electric Company was officially and tragically declared bankrupt, leaving behind a staggering $1.1 billion in debt. James Ting was eventually arrested and jailed, but the damage was irreversible. The legacy of Saburo Akai had been looted and burned to the ground. So what happened to them? Why do we still occasionally see the Akai logo in stores today? Today, Akai suffers from a phenomenon known as a zombie brand. The original company is dead, but the name was reanimated solely as a licensing trademark. When Grande Holdings collapsed, the rights to the Akai name were chopped up and sold off. There is a silver lining. Akai Professional, the music studio division that makes the MPCs, is still highly successful, producing top-tier modern electronic instruments for producers today. But for home electronics, the license was simply rented out to independent factories. That flat-screen TV, air conditioner, or Bluetooth speaker you see with an Akai logo today is just an OEM product. It's just a sticker. It has absolutely zero connection to the brilliant Japanese engineers of the 1980s. The story of Akai is a bitter lesson in the corporate world. It is undeniable proof that even indestructible technology like the glass and crystal head ultimately cannot survive human greed and financial manipulation. For those who ever experienced the magic of spinning a reel-to-reel tape or making beats on a classic MPC, Akai will always be remembered as the audio giant that defined an era, a mechanical masterpiece that became a victim of a ruthless business industry. What about you? Do you have any memories with Akai gear? Let me know in the comments below which Akai product was the most memorable to you. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss our next dive into the forgotten tech history that shaped our world today. I'll see you in the next video.